Welcome everyone to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. This time posted a day late. I'm sorry, I was on a mountain. And if I tried to record on the mountain, all you guys would have been able to hear is bagpipes. I have no joke this week. I just have an observation. We have officially done more episodes than the Noisy Pixel podcast, whose feed we replaced, and I think that that's pretty cool.
We're normal now.
Yeah, we have officially taken over. This is our feed. This is our feed. We have the majority of it, and may we continue to reign until the end of time, or until all of mankind falls.
Yeah.
My name is Colin Buchanan. I'm a Nosy Pixel staff writer and your host, and I am joined as per usual by my fellow staff writer Nathan Mejia and our editor-in-chief Bailey C. Mangle. How are you guys doing this week?
It's been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride, bro. The last couple of days have been really busy. I am shocked I beat Sky today. In fact, I kind of gamed during work, which I shouldn't have. But I'm ahead. I'm ahead in my work. I'm ahead.
Bailey, how about you?
I had jury duty.
Like, you actually had to go in, or?
Well, I got up to the process and they were like, no, you could go and you're free for 8 years now. So
yeah, I've been summoned. So I got summoned twice when I lived in New Jersey still. And then New Jersey attempted to summon me again after I moved to Milwaukee, and I was like, oh, I don't live there anymore. Like, you can't really make me travel across the country for this, especially like none of the times I've ever been called, been summoned have I ever actually had to go in and do it. Yeah. So
you're just a tribute for a better juror.
I know why they don't pick me. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I was a prospective one though, but I didn't make the final cut.
There was just better jurors, and you'll just have to live with that.
Yeah.
I just came back from a trip to a Highland Games event in North Carolina. I describe it lovingly as Scottish Coachella, because everybody that I know camps out for like a whole week ahead of time, and like we've formed these giant like camping almost structures. Like there's 6 campers that all go together, and they make what we call the mead hall, and we all like cook for each other and shit like that. It's honestly wonderful, but I also have very little service up there. So I did not really get to participate too much in the biggest Noisy Pixel thing that happened this week, which is we brought on 9 new writers.
It's a lot of new people. Like, I think it's as big, if not bigger, than the group.
It's about as big as our wave was, and so we'll see how many of them stick around. I will happily
fucking 10 people.
I will happily any of them that graduate into big boy content writers. I will happily have them on the podcast if they want to be.
So it's 10 new people. So in total we have like 13. We got like 28 people, I think,
something like that. Like, several of us don't really do a ton. Not that I'm shading them. This is absolutely a side thing for all of us, except for maybe Azario. But I'm happy to have people. That's cool. So hopefully we'll see, more new faces around here soon. A lot of them are already pumping out content. Love that for them. That was how me and Nate and Ryuji started, was just you hit the ground running.
Yeah.
With H Games.
And Azario has already made someone review fucking H Games.
So that's how I started, bro. I previewed an H game.
I know. That's why it's funny.
Nate's fucking game history for
Nate's favorite review
is like the most bizarre shit I've ever fucking seen.
What do you mean?
You go from fucking swimmer admiration to fucking outbreak.
Yeah.
Like the biggest fucking jump I've ever seen.
So my first review was Gravity Heroes, and I gave that, I think, a 5 because it wasn't fun. Like, it was presented really well, but it wasn't fun. I'm trying to remember what the second game I review was, because I think it might have been Yakuza 6 on PC.
That's a good game.
Which I think I gave a 7 or a 7.5. Like, the PC port was fine. It's the Dragon engine. There's only, it was held together with tape and dreams at this point. And it's of like, frankly, one of the weaker games in the series. But that's not a controversial opinion by any means.
It's not.
But I'm happy to have played it.
Yeah.
In any case, let us move along to our actual first topic of discussion. So I already know what we're going to call this episode, and it's going to be after the second topic this week, because the first topic this week is as requested by Nate, because it is something that he is particularly steamed about. So I'm going to let you introduce it, sir.
All right. So then it is the Ubisoft thing.
Oh boy, here we go.
Here we go. So here's the peculiar thing. So Ubisoft, this week or last week, essentially said, hey, these list of games, which is Assassin's Creed 2 to 3.
Oh, really? Shit.
So that's like 5 games, just in case you didn't know. That's Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood. No, that's 4 games. Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, and 3. So that's 4 games.
And Liberation, isn't it?
Yeah, so
true.
The only one that I saw was Liberation. I didn't know it was all fucking 5 of them. Oh shit.
Yeah. It's all of them.
Anyway,
including Far Cry 3 and a couple other games that I don't personally care about too much, but I know other people did. And what they did was they put all these games on sale, said, hey, no more on Steam. And then after sometime in September, I think it's September 9th, you can't play them anymore at all.
That's really fucking awful.
Yeah. At all?
At all.
Yeah,
just
you
online. I'm confused
you
here.
won't be able to launch them at all.
Yeah, because they require Uconnect, and Uconnect will no longer administrate them. So it's not even like, hey, we pull them off and you can download them still and play them still. It is, they're gone.
Yeah, that's pretty Wonka.
Which, things getting pulled off a store is not news, not big news. It's not a big deal. It happens all the time, unfortunately. Them going, nah, brother, we can't let you play those games anymore. Go buy the new one. Is
is that all of those titles? I've not quite.
Yeah, from what I understand, everybody said, yeah, because they require Uconnect.
We have an update. We have an update as of today.
Shit.
This is from gamesindustry.biz, but it does share sources with IGN. Okay. So this is just what came up first. Ubisoft has clarified that players who have purchased the affected titles will not lose access to those games. In a statement shared with IGN, the publisher said, as stated in our support article, which is linked to, only DLCs and online features will be affected by the upcoming decommissioning. Current owners of those games will still be able to access, play, or re-download them. Our teams are working with our partners to update this information across all storefronts and are also assessing all available options for players who will be impacted when these games and online services are decommissioned on September 1st, 2022. It has always been our intention to do everything in our power to allow those legacy titles to remain available in the best possible conditions for players, and this is what we are working towards.
Okay, so that's like nowhere near as
that's nowhere near as bad. Which that means that is the world's most terribly worded press release ever originally.
So what this is, for those of you that aren't gamers, I'm going to basically lay this out, because I know that there are people that listen to us that either don't know how this cycle goes, or just want things more clearly explained to them. So this is what we call sunsetting. So sunsetting has a couple of different means in terms of software development. Usually it means that a feature is being retired, or that content is no longer being developed or maintained. So anytime that a company has decided, hey, we're not going to keep bug fixing this game, the way that it exists now is just the way that it's going to be, because we need to move on to something else, or because the game is too old to keep supporting and have that be financially viable, they sunset support for that game. Usually it still remains playable. In the case of online features, there has to be a server somewhere that has to be maintained and kept online and powered. So eventually it just becomes not worth it for the company to keep doing that. Most of these games, as far as I'm aware, don't have microtransactions. So there's not really much beyond just someone bought this game on the PS3 or the Xbox 360 or PC, however long ago, to keep the servers going. And so eventually you just come to expect that a lot of titles nowadays, it's mostly titles that are from the 7th generation, so the PS3 and the 360 era, are slowly having their online support withdrawn, which is upsetting from a preservation standpoint, but somewhat understandable from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
Because again, these companies are not and have not made any money on really any of these for a significant period of time. And also, good news for a lot of these is a lot of these have current generation or previous generation backwards compatible versions. So all those Assassin's Creed games have updated versions that are playable on current consoles. Far Cry 3 has a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One port that is playable on current consoles. So a lot of these games do still have their online modes. You just need to update to the most recent version in order to keep accessing them.
Yes.
So what this kind of got me thinking about, because we've seen this over the last couple of years, Ubisoft has slowly just retired online access to a lot of games that are kind of like, some of them are redundant. Like, you don't need to keep all of the Just Dance individual game servers up. Most people like either stopped playing or kept buying the newer version. So it's understandable to like, you don't need Just Dance 2016's server to still be up in 2022, but there's I've mentioned before that someone that I get a lot of my personal news from is a YouTuber called Mystic. He primarily covers PlayStation content. He does a show every Friday called Let's Talk PlayStation. That's just kind of a news digest for the week. And every year what he does is he will make a video where he goes back to games that are still live online on PS3, and he just kind of checks out the community and sees what's going on. And so this is kind of relevant to that, because like some of the games that he checked on this year won't exist as of next year, but he always asks why people are still holding them back to those versions. And so like I wanted to ask you guys what you would think of like why, for example, let's take like something as obvious as like Call of Duty, like why anybody would still be playing Black Ops on the PlayStation 3 and 360.
So I think I'm probably a little bit more able to answer this than Bailey.
Sure, I know that I picked a first-person shooter. I'm just trying to like go with an obvious example.
Well, it's not even like that. It's there's minor things that I think the average person wouldn't really be able to say. But even if, because Call of Duty is a good one, because even if you went from Modern Warfare, which was on the 360 PS3 era, and then go to Modern Warfare, that's now the PS4 PS5, there's going to be slight balance. To be clear,
changes. Modern Warfare Remastered, not Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Yeah,
the title from a couple years ago.
Yeah. That's and that is also very confusing, and I don't like Activision EA for doing that, or Activision Blizzard for doing that. But there's going to be tweak changes. There are going to be minor things, changes the way the game feels, changes the way the bullets hit, and it changes the way the games feel very slightly. This is like kind of the same thing as saying, why do people still play the original Trails in the Sky ports on PC versus the Evolution ports? Why do they still play those instead of that one? Because the games play very differently, surprisingly differently.
Sure. I mean, in Trails' case, it's kind of different because the thing with the Evolution ports is that they have never and will never be localized. Because actually, Bailey, you might be able to clarify. Like I remember reading about it, but I know that there are specific reasons why Xseed and now NIS America don't touch the Evo versions.
It's because from what I know, I'm pretty sure it's like only because of they're all licensed by Kadokawa.
Yeah.
And so like they have a bunch of like new animations and like new soundtrack stuff that they don't want to, that they'd rather not go through the trouble of licensing. And I don't think Kadokawa even like wants to do it as well. So like it's a whole like big like like it's just like a whole lot of money they don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can get into in the second half of this, because that's going to be more relevant to our second topic today. But yes, there being better versions of the older games is certainly a reason. When Modern Warfare Remastered came out, a understandably large deal was made out of the fact that this was going against the norm for being a remastered version of a game that not only didn't include the DLC from the original game, but charged more for it than when that DLC originally came out.
Yeah.
So it's understandable that people would be miffed about that and want to go back to a system where they already paid for this content.
Yeah.
Rather than paying for it a second time. One reason that I have heard repeated a couple times, and this is something that like kind of strikes you as odd in today's day and age, but it makes more sense if you think back the way that people thought like 10 years ago, is a lot of people stick to specifically the PS3 because the PS3 was the final like major console that did not require you to pay for online multiplayer services.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what I hear when asked why people are still sticking around is just, I on principle don't want to pay for this thing that I should be getting for free. Because now, well, I get, no, the Wii U came out after and that didn't charge you, but the Wii U also barely had any. So as of the original Xbox was already charging for Xbox Live. The PS4, you needed, as of the PS4, you needed PlayStation Plus to play online. And then now as of the Nintendo Switch, after the first 2 years of its existence, you needed Nintendo Switch Online to play online. So I understand people that want to cling to has a negative connotation. I understand it's like something that, you know, it's kind of silly to lock behind a paywall. But I understand people that on principle don't want to pay for their multiplayer services because it's just a part of these games, and it's not like, you know, they're giving any of that to the developers or anything like that. This is Sony taking all of that, and the developers, you know, are the ones who have to keep the servers up, or Microsoft taking all of that, or Nintendo taking all of that. So I get it. That's kind of stupid. But I also I see a lot of people stick around these communities just because like it is at this point a much closer community than it ever was before. You know, you think of like, let's take Call of Duty again. You think of the millions of people that were in those lobbies when the games first came out, and now like let's say on Black Ops 1 on Xbox Live on Xbox 360, like now it's just like a couple hundred, and you probably know most of them if you're still the kind of person that's playing them. Like, it's kind of funny how many people will react to Mystic jumping into a lobby and being like, oh my god, it's a new person. Like, holy shit, that never happens, because nobody's digging these things out. It's just people that have kind of stuck with it forever. But I think that at this point, it's just kind of something that we have to accept about the way that games function now, is that eventually, like, these companies can't keep these up forever without any sort of monetary incentive to do so, because capitalism. So there's not really a good reason for them to want to, especially when shutting servers down may finally be the thing that gets, you know, a couple hundred more sales for one of their newer titles. But I wanted to ask, is there anything that either of you can think of that might be a better answer than just shutting these games down permanently, and just being like, nope, they're gone, can't do it anymore, we're never turning these on again, these games are lost now, move on to something else?
This is going to be a if in a perfect world type of solution, but I would like it if the developers would, at least for old games that they're going to sunset and not make any money on anyways, it would be nice if they would hand over some of the net code over to fans so fans can run servers. Because you see that happen all the time with PC games, is that there's fan run servers. I think WoW, before WoW had a classic mode, had fan run servers that played.
Tons of them. I used to play on one.
Yeah. Like, and I think that's a better solution, is to let the fans do it.
So WoW Classic, actually, that's a funny story, because WoW Classic effectively evolved out of a fan-made server called Nostalrius. And it was like one of the most popular private servers that existed, and it was literally just WoW Classic, exactly how you would expect it. It was vanilla World of Warcraft on the very last patch before Burning Crusade, and thousands of people were playing it, and like Blizzard shut it down. But I think that like them taking notice of that was kind of a key step towards getting WoW Classic, like, you know, setting the ball in motion for that. And yes, World of Warcraft Classic is unfortunately now a hilarious, ironic bastardization of what it once was, because they jammed the modern cash shop into it. But you know, good things come out of fan efforts sometimes.
Yeah. No, again.
Bailey, any thoughts?
You know, what Nate said kind of sounds like the ideal scenario. Like, I think, like, feasibly speaking, it would, like, because I don't know how much it costs to keep those running, you know? Like, if it, because, like, if it is, I don't know, so, like, depending on how much it is, like, I think there should be, like, an expected sort of, like, time limit, you know? Like, because I just don't, because I don't think it's, because, like, as much as people want to preserve games that have online functionality, like, it's just not, you know, like, at a point, is just like no meaning to doing it anymore.
So like, if they're, you know, let's take a game with bespoke content specifically, so we're talking about like Call of Duty as opposed to Just Dance, like, let's say, like, you know, set the standard at, we'll maintain these servers for 10 years after the final content patch or something like that. And like make that transparent. I have kind of an alternative, and this is you know, this is also pretty idealistic of me, but what I think would be cool, because there are, you know, dedicated communities around a lot of these multiplayer games. A lot of these games don't really get the same style of multiplayer anymore. And there's just a lot of people that want to keep playing these games, but they literally have no option to financially continue to support them. What I think would be cool would be for at least some of these titles, your Call of Duties, your Assassin's Creeds and stuff, to do like a greatest hits release that can still be like before let's say the PlayStation 3 and the 360 content submission has shut down, like let's take, you know, everybody's favorite maps from all of the 7th gen Call of Duties, and we'll jam them into one game, like one multiplayer mode, so that everybody can be in one lobby together and the community can be as large as it can possibly be. You can charge for it, I don't care, that's completely fine by me. But just in it, because like that's something that you see with massively multiplayer online games, as they start losing population, they start merging servers. There's not really an easy way to do that when you have, you know, 6 different bespoke game releases that all have separate communities. But if you made more of an attempt to bring these communities together, it becomes much easier to justify keeping the servers alive, because there's still, you know, 700, 800, 900, 1,000 people playing every week. So just to like, I agree that fan servers are probably the more likely way that this is going to happen. I just wanted to present an alternative perspective that I've kind of been thinking about.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Because
So, anybody have any final thoughts on sunsetting and Ubisoft specifically? Some of the ones that they picked.
yeah, it is at least the ones they picked. If you really cared about the online, at least you could go pick up the new ones. But I understood on principle of I've already bought this game once. Why do I have to buy it again? Type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was much more upset when the initial wording was, you will no longer be able to play those games at all, rather than, hey, wait,
Yeah,
no, it's
I'm
just
glad
the
that
online.
I found that update so that we wouldn't record with already outdated information when we're already recording significantly later than we usually would.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Also, just real quick, I want to say it in the episode. Because of that mountain thing where I was away, we are posting a day later than we usually do. That was a plan ahead of time. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't Nate forgot to make the video public or something like that.
Yeah, no.
Bailey, just anything else you wanted to say? You look like you're falling asleep.
I
know you're here for the second half of this episode.
Well, man, that's gonna be something.
It's gonna be something.
I don't see any like realistically easy solution to any of this. Like I think this is gonna be a thing we tackle for like the next couple of decades. Even like it's gonna get worse as time passes because with more and more titles, there's more and more to preserve.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes the question of how, or even if they're gonna how people are gonna still try to upkeep this.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be like a pretty long uphill battle.
And you have like weird cases like Destiny, where the game is still alive, but the developers themselves are vaulting content and making it inaccessible, despite the fact that the game is still alive and well. Like that, I make this joke, but like I have a dozen of these Destiny 2 discs, and all of the content on these is inaccessible now. You can't the campaign of this game you can't play anymore.
Have you ever said on the podcast that you fucking use this as coasters?
Yes, I have.
Yes, it was pretty recent though.
It's the most fucked up thing I think I ever heard from somebody.
My final thoughts. As your reminder, just almost in a bubble from the rest of the discussion. Fuck Ubisoft.
Oh shit.
Fuck Ubisoft. They still have not properly accounted for all of the shitty sex predators that they harbored knowingly, and a lot of them either haven't been fired or fired with golden parachutes. So that I just wanted to get that out there, lest anybody think that I forgot about that. But as for the topic in and of itself, this is hard from like a game preservation standpoint, because like a lot of things, like to play devil's advocate here, for basically everything up through the 6th generation, all you had to do to preserve a game was just rip the disc and upload that to the internet, and people would figure out what to do with it. And now we're at a point where we have games that require a backend, like a server to talk to, and it is obviously unreasonable to expect people to out of the goodness of their hearts just create fan servers for all of these games and then have to maintain them in perpetuity. So I do think that there is a greater solution that needs to be found here. I don't know what it is yet. I hope that as technology advances, we can, sort of start to work towards figuring out how to preserve this content, because it's important. Preservation of all of this is always important, and it should always be something that these developers are thinking about. But for now, again, a lot of these particular games have modern remasters or re-releases that are still being supported, and I encourage you to go check those out. maybe do it used, so you're not putting money in their pockets. But those are my 2 cents. People want to have people want to keep having fun with these games. I recognize that a lot of them hold sentimental value to a lot of people. I've played all of these Assassin's Creed games. I had a blast with all of them, and nothing would make me happier than if we had a solution to just let these communities just continue to go on however long they want to, instead of just having to pull the plug at some point. But that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
So in the second week, or excuse me, in the second half of today, I just worked for 8 hours and I'm 2 drinks in. In the second half of today's episode, we are going to get a little bit lighter. We have long said that once our boy Nate finished playing Trails in the Sky first chapter, that we were going to do a podcast episode about it. And 2 weeks later, suddenly he's finished the third. So I guess we're talking about all of Trails in the Sky now. This is going to be as spoiler free as we can possibly make it. We're going to do our best to not talk about any of the major twists, and instead approach this as a discussion about Trails, the way that an outsider might want to hear about it. But hope you guys are looking forward to that, and we will be right back. Welcome to the second half of this week's podcast. So in the first half, we talked about Ubisoft making the decision to sunset several more of their 7th generation titles, sort of what this means for the industry overall, and how we could theoretically deal with it in a more ideal world. And that you know, it's kind of sad. It's kind of depressing to think about how much we're going to lose because companies can't be bothered to be incentivized to keep this stuff up. Thankfully, in the second half of this week's podcast, we're going to be talking about something that will never die.
Yes.
if fans of this series have anything to say about it, and that is The Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky.
Yeah.
So, Nate, you wanna give the quick recap of your journey over the last several months?
Yeah. So last several months thing, ever since I've actually started ever since I joined Noisy Pixel, is Bailey here, as well as an ex-writer of ours, are really into Trails, and they would talk about it constantly. And I'd catch snippets of it here and there, and I'd watch Bailey play like the newest one from Japan or something, and I'd be like, this looks interesting, what the hell's going on? And I eventually ask, hey, where should I start? And I get Cold Steel is fine, but if you want whole context, start with Sky. And I say, okay. So I bought Sky on Steam sale because it was like $5 to $10 per, really cheap. And I started up, and I kind of go back and forth on it because beginning of Sky is really slow. It's a very good pick up and put down RPG up until a certain point, and then I went, crap. And then I blasted through the rest of the games in like less than a month.
Yep. It was like 2.5 weeks, which is insane given how long second chapter is.
Yeah. Second chapter was long. It took me like nearly 100 hours for everything.
So just real quick, I want to make a minor addendum to a thing that was just said, because I don't want to unperson him. We're gonna go with former writer, former Noisy Pixel staff writer, Kevin Mai.
Okay.
Just
I didn't know.
Ex-writer sounds like he got fired. He didn't get fired. He left relatively amicably.
Yeah. No, I didn't know if we were not supposed to say his name anymore. No, so I was like, oh.
I still talk to him like no, we don't need to unperson anybody. That's unnecessary. What do we look like, Azario?
Colin,
it's fine. He won't make it this far in the podcast.
These nerds.
No.
So I wanted to kind of do a roundtable discussion. Again, we're going to keep this as spoiler free as we possibly can. But we are now 3 people that have all finished these games, albeit, you know, in a. Actually, no, Bailey, you just replayed these on Nightmare, so all of us are somewhat recent in terms of how we finished them. But Nate, I'm going to start with you just because you are kind of the man of the hour here. So what attracted you to Trails?
So I'm not gonna lie, Trails has always kind of been on a back burner of interest for me. Mostly Cold Steel, and that's because I keep hearing Trails and Cold Steel is like Persona, but different. And you know, and that's kind of a bad way to describe it, honestly. I could see some of the similarities from where I'm at in the game. Like, I'm literally within the first hour of the game, so I can see some similarities why people would say that right off the bat. But playing Sky, I can tell you that was the wrong way to approach it, because I bounced off Trails numerous times because of that. Me going, it's not like Persona at all. I don't know what they're talking about. And then, like I said, with Bailey and Kevin, they kept talking about it. I am infatuated with people's enthusiasm, not with people themselves, but with the enthusiasm of things they love. And I want to understand why they love them and how they love it to me. So being around people that are so passionate makes me want to be passionate as well. And eventually I was like, you know what, screw it, I'll take the plunge. I'll start with Sky. You know, you love Sky so much, Colin. Bailey's really fond of them too. And I was like, let's see where it goes. And needless to say, I fell in love. I did fall in love with the game.
Bailey, what drew you to Trails?
It was kind of just coincidence. So like when I was really young, like middle school, I think I was like 11, I think. I went on like a random trip to like a GameStop with my dad. Saw this game called E7, and I was like, yeah, it looks cool. I'll like grab it. And like I learned about Falcom through YouTube by just finding their like songs online by accident. So the very first exposure I had was to Silver Will, which is one of the more iconic tracks from Sky, and that led to me learning about what Trails and Ease were, and then and then I got Trails in the Sky for the PSP. That was the second Falcom game I ever played, and then from then on, I was just like full on in, because like that was, I think so, like aside from like Kingdom Hearts at the time, that was the only like series I was following where it had an ongoing like constant narrative, you know. So that's what kind of like drew me in. But like I like playing Trails then was such a fucking pain in the ass, because like we only had Sky 1, took like fucking 4 years or something for like Sky 2. Like it was a whole long haul, but like
yeah.
Let me hang on. I want to find like the actual number there.
Yeah,
I think it was like 4-ish years or something.
Yeah, I think it was like 4 or 5 years, because I remember a few of the box jokes.
It was like 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah, I remember some of the jokes.
Trails in the Sky released on the PSP in 2011 in North America. That was 2.5 years after Japan, and then second chapter would not release until 2015. So it was 4 years, but it was just over 4 years. And for information on why it took that long, you know, as per usual, we're going to refer you to a Matt McMuscles video, because surprisingly, he has done one about Trails in the Sky second chapter. I believe it was a request. So that is probably the most niche game that he has ever covered on his channel.
I actually missed that episode, so I'm excited now. After this, I'm going to go watch that.
It's kind of tragic. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. It's upsetting.
It's not great.
Yeah.
But what drew me in? way back when I was in high school, I had no money, but I had a PSP and it was jailbroken. So I was very firmly in my, I'm gonna pirate every JRPG I can get my freaking hands on. And I started hearing a lot of word of mouth about something that I was kind of surprised about, because I knew about the Legend of Heroes series because 3 of them had already been localized for this thing and gotten pretty mediocre reception. And the 3 games that had already been released, what were they? They weren't in order, by the way.
Yeah, it was Tears to Vermilion.
Yeah, Tears of Vermilion.
I believe it was Tear of Vermilion, Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch, and then Song of the Ocean. They were not in order.
Yeah, that's not the order.
This was the Gagarv trilogy. So if you hear anybody talking about that, that is what they are talking about, is the 3 Legend of Heroes games preceding Trails. Anyway, they got extremely mediocre reception coming out in English because they were all fairly dated, because they were ports of significantly older PC games with plots that are, kind of played out, and gameplay that is also fairly played out by today's standards. And by today, I mean 2010.
Yeah.
So the following game in the series, which looked extremely different from everything that had come before it, was called Trails in the Sky, and it started building up some really serious word of mouth in the JRPG community for just like the depth of its world. And so I downloaded it. I promise I eventually bought it. I did. I promise you. Let's get that out of the way. This is, I'm describing events from more than 10 years ago now. And I kind of dove in, and I certainly stuck with it a lot longer than I did any of the Legend of Heroes games before it. I will say that I bounced off of it after, I think, in the middle of the 2nd chapter for a very long time. And then kind of tying into to our second point for this topic, I was drawn back into Trails because Cold Steel was coming out and getting amazing reception. Like it was this almost an underground title from a publisher that not many people knew about. I already really liked Xseed because they published Shadow Hearts in the United States, but everybody was like, this is the best JRPG on the PlayStation 3. And I was like, okay. So I picked it up and I was like, oh, wait, it's connected to this other thing that I started playing 1,000 years ago. And I had a friend that basically encouraged me, don't start there. It's okay if you start there, but it's so much better playing that game after you've played these other games. And so I finally picked this thing back up, and I stubbornly decided to finish first chapter on the PSP, even though I had access to the PC version, because I was like, I'm already into the 2nd chapter. I had no idea that I was only like a third of the way into the game. And made my eyes bleed and played on what I now understand is the slowest combat system ever invented. No turbo mode, bad textures, and pre-retranslation. I finished it and I stuck it out, and I kept playing on PC after this, because I was like, I looked at what carried over to 2nd chapter, because 2nd chapter, when it came out in 2015, inexplicably still got a PSP release.
Yep.
I say inexplicably. It was Xseed making good on a promise, but like there was no good reason for it other than they said they would do it. And 3rd came out on PC exclusively anyway, so that was rendered a moot point. But that was kind of how I got into it. It took me a while to get through the first one, and then the 2nd and the 3rd one I blazed through in like 2 weeks apiece, if that. And I had an absolute blast. I fell so in love with these games, and I honestly didn't even realize how deep I was until I started looking at the fan translation scene, because I knew that there were games that were missing that I was supposed to play before Cold Steel. And so now Nate is kind of at a point where he's got a couple of months until he also gets to play the first of those two games.
Yep.
So that I had planned to play Cold Steel, and then a friend of mine was like, okay, but you should really do this first. And I listened to him.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it for a second, the hundreds of hours that I put into these games.
Yeah.
So Bailey, how about you? How did you originally plan to, or did you just like go through as the games came out and didn't really miss anything?
I played Sky 1 when it came out, like fully. And like the wait for Sky 2 just kind of like sapped my like excitement a lot. So by the time I did come out, because like I remember the day it got localized on PC, like Sky that like the day Sky 2 came to like PC was also the same date the Binding of Isaac Rebirth came out. It was either Rebirth or it was like Afterbirth. It was like one of the two, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play some Binding of Isaac instead. So
my boyfriend's obsessed. I get it. He's obsessed with Binding of Isaac.
So I didn't play Sky 2 or 3 right away. I played Cold Steel 1 after that. And then like a week after that I played through Sky 2 and 3. And then, from then on it was just Cold Steel 2 onward. Just Sky is like I completely understand the people who have trouble getting like the people who have trouble getting like into it, because it's like a very, very slow burn.
Just for context, Trails in the Sky second chapter was literally released in North America 2 months before Cold Steel 1.
Yeah.
A game that in Japan came out like 7 years later.
Oh yeah, so I played Sky 1, Cold Steel 1, Sky 2, Sky 3, Cold Steel 2 onward. That's what I did. Yeah.
So I'm just going to give like a quick rundown for anybody that doesn't know. I can't imagine there's too many of you, but I know that there will be some of you. So the Trails games were not all consecutively released in the United States. So effectively, Xseed published Trails in the Sky 1, and it did okay. It built up a cult following, but sales wise it did okay. And eventually, after a lot of tumultuous localization efforts, they finally brought out second chapter and committed to doing Trails in the Sky the third, which is not quite a sequel to second chapter, but it's like
kind of like a fan. It's like a little bit, I guess.
It's a connective game. It is a transitional piece between the first two games and the fourth and the fifth game. So they committed to doing the third, but there were 2 games between Trails in the Sky 3 and Trails of Cold Steel, both of which were also done in very much the same art style, and they kind of thought, okay, I feel like the art style is what's holding this game back, this series back sales wise. So the decision was made to skip over the second arc of the story and go right to Trails of Cold Steel because it was deemed that the 3D art style would be more marketable. And I believe that honestly ended up being the case, because Trails of Cold Steel blew up to a much bigger degree that Trails in the Sky did. And it's really only now that we're seeing it become even somewhat approaching the JRPG mainstream. A lot of people still look at these games and they're like, I don't know that I want to touch them because these people are obsessed and rabid and foaming at the mouth. But the 2 missing games, which are Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, are the Crossspell arc, and they are only now finally being officially localized by NIS America. Trails from Zero comes out in September. Trails to Azure most likely will be out very early next year. And these localizations are based on 2 extremely well-known and high-quality fan translations known as the Geofront translations. So effectively they took these bought them off of the team and are using them as the basis for the official release of these two games. So anybody that did not play those and does not know Japanese either played with an extremely subpar translation or
that
has not played
Zero,
these at all.
that first Zero translation was rough. That was so rough. Boy.
So it's kind of a lot, and this is one of the factors that play into something that Trails is unfortunately known for outside of its fandom, which is fandom gatekeeping. And so that was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion was Nate kind of came to his own decision to play Sky. I don't think that any of us specifically pressured you into it. I think that you just looked at these games, went neat, and decided to go for them.
Yeah.
But one of the results of Cold Steel specifically gaining as much notoriety as it did is a lot of people decided that they wanted to pick these games up, potentially not even knowing that there were previous games in the series with context that they may have wanted to know. And a lot of people who played Trails in the Sky as it came out got very mad about this. So my journey, I have a, again, I talk about my friend. He greatly encouraged me to play Trails in the Sky first, and once I decided, okay, I'm gonna do this, I then kind of referred to him on like, I think I'm just gonna like go through all of these in order. I can wait to play Cold Steel now that I know better, and I have plenty of other things to do in the meantime. And then basically as soon as I finished third, the Geofront team had like finally gone serious mode on the Zero translation, and I only had to wait a couple of months. So that was cool. A lot of people didn't have that experience and waited a very long time for anything resembling a professional translation of these games. But I will personally say that my experience with Cold Steel has been much more of an inconsistent quality than the previous games. Because Trails in the Sky is kind of known for starting slow, but I would not say that it is nearly as slow as, for example, Cold Steel 2. And it has much stronger character writing throughout. That's kind of like my argument for how to approach these games is don't feel like you have to play Trails in the Sky and Crossbell before you get to Cold Steel. Like these games are as good, if not better, than Cold Steel. And I think that is more how the conversation should go, because people should want to play these games. They're really good. I get that they look old, but they play extremely similarly to how the Cold Steel games do anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah. In fact, it was a bit of a weird logic jump because I was so used to Sky that when I finally went to 3D Trails, I kind of had this weird moment where I was like, I can't see as much of the map as I should. I'm not seeing that sky view, which
the overhead,
the overhead view. So it was kind of weird. And my first couple minutes of playing was like, I got to readjust to the HUD and refine all the HUD elements because it's the same but slightly different at the same time.
Bailey, I know that you have some personal experience, I'm going to say lightly, with this side of the fandom and the way that people talk about Kiseki spoilers. So if you want to go into that, you are more than welcome to. If not, I can move on from that.
Yeah, I can like talk about it. So like my experience with Sky, so like with Sky 1, so I played Sky 1, Cold Steel 1, and then Sky 2 and 3 pretty much pre-fanbase interaction, and then so like when I got involved with the fan base, it was like primarily through like Twitter and like some of Reddit, and like they had like a big like Discord server. Like you kind of learn a lot about how the general fandom is from those specific spaces. And it's a very like it's like a very like, I don't want to say problematic, but it's very like super like messy. So like you have so like it's important to like note that like a lot of these like complainers are a very like vocal minority. Like they're not what the expanse of the fan base is like. So like a lot of the arguments you would see are like they're typically like how either like Cold Steel is like dog shit, or like fucking Sky is the best, right? And like and like it's very like super spectrum opinion. So like it's like one edge of like one side to like the other edge, and there's like barely any like amicable like conversation that takes place. So it's difficult to like find those specific like spots in the fan base where like people are like reasonable, you know, and like it's like pretty like friendly. Like it's not like an easy place to find a place, if like that makes sense.
No, I think
that
that
makes
this is
sense.
one of those things where like a lot of the time you have much better luck just interacting with people one-on-one than trying to engage with like a whole community, because unfortunately that's how loud minorities of like minority groups of people just build up and can start to harass people, and that sucks. That really sucks. I don't endorse any of that.
What makes it kind of like, so like what makes this so like interesting with Trails specifically is that it's like it's still like a super like underground, like obscure, well not obscure, but like pretty like niche series. So like a lot of the problems you would see with Trails, I kind of like harken to Persona somewhat, and like how that fan and like how that fan and how that fan base is like, but that's a lot more mainstream. You know, so like there's a lot more like room to find your way in there. With Trails, it's very much like it feels like a locked room almost. So like if you end up in the wrong spot, it could feel like that's the entirety of how it is, you know, because of how small the series appeal is, you know. Like in my case, like I just got up with a really like bad like elitist crowd for Crossbell, and that was like pre like Geofront translation. So like a lot of people at the time, like not really now because they can't really do it now, but like back at the time, like they would use like their knowledge of like they would use their knowledge of like Japanese as like kind of like a, like they would use it as like almost like a crutch to like make these games seem like they're above the other ones, if that makes sense. So like it's kind of like a weird sort of like regional like language exclusivity where like I'm experiencing this thing that you can't experience yet, and I'm like telling you that it's better than what you're experiencing now. And it's like a really weird like ego trip narrative. Like it's not really the case now because of how like the games are like coming much more rapidly, thankfully. But like back in the day, that was like kind of like the main issue, I would say.
And you know, I think that in terms of the community having access, however briefly we did, to the Geofront translations and then the official announcement has kind of alleviated some of that. But you know, it's kind of amusing how many videos there are on YouTube of just like people answering the question of how do you start Trails? What order do you play these games in? I think I speak for probably both myself and Bailey when I say play them in release order. Just shut off Trails to Azure about 10 seconds before the credits roll.
We actually have a featured piece on the site if you want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
We have a guide,
it's kind of funny that like Bailey is or has been part of two major fandoms, both of which are constantly approached with the question, okay, so what order do I play these in again? Release order. Release order. If you want to do it the thorough way, release order. You don't have to play Gagarv in order to get into Trails. That's just a thing that's just another thing that people think that they want. But start with Sky One. It's on Steam. Any computer can run it. And just play through. So that's kind of where I sit. I don't like that there's people that yell at people about the way that they play these games. And Ryuji has kind of made it a running joke that I am a Trails gatekeeper because he
yeah, go on.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
No, nothing. So
Ryuji has been watching and helping Bailey play through Kuro no Kiseki, which is as of this recording the most recent release in Japan. We're probably not going to see it until 2024 in America officially, but it is available on Steam in Japanese. So Ryuji has kind of been helping Bailey translate it, and then he keeps messaging me like, "Oh, I just got spoiled on this," or "Oh, it must make you so upset that I'm seeing this for," and it's like
Ryuji loves doing that shit.
Yeah, I don't care. He said specifically that he's not interested in the combat system of everything from Trails in the Sky in through Reverie, and it's like, okay, so you're not going to play these games, so I don't know why you think that it's going to bother me that you're getting spoiled, because you're not going to play these games.
I can hear him too.
I can hear Ryuji talking right now.
Nate, Colin's going to get real angry.
He does say that a lot. He does say that.
But there, at the same time, there's a reason why people want you to play Trails in the Sky, because a lot of people, they want modern ports of these games to PlayStation 4 and 5, and a lot of people just want these to not be forgotten just because they look older.
Like that's why it's so good that Crossbow's coming. I do find it really weird how that's coming over first before Sky is on like these like modern platforms, but at least we're getting it. Like Sky is like the foundation of what like the whole series is, so that's something a lot of like prospective newer players don't really like they don't really understand that yet.
Like if you didn't play Trails in the Sky first and second chapter and third, like there is all kinds of emotional payoffs in Zero and Azure that you will just completely miss.
Especially in Zero. And especially in Zero.
So the people that want you to play Sky first, like we want you to do it because we want you to have like to maximize your experience with these games. And I'm not even gonna, be the kind of person that says you have to play these games and you have to talk to every single NPC, because like that's completely optional. If you want to engage in this world more than the plot requires you to, you're welcome to. I don't have the patience for it. A lot of people don't have the patience for it. But like the major story beats, it is very similar to like trying to play Kingdom Hearts 3, having missed everything after 2. Like a lot of this game is riding on you having emotional reactions to what's happening because you have developed an attachment to the characters in front of you. And thankfully to the people that started with Cold Steel 1 and 2, those games are kind of in a bubble. You can play them for the most part without spoiling the other games. I have really strong feelings about Cold Steel 2 in particular, but I loved the first game, Cold Steel 1. So if you must start there, it's a perfectly fine place to start. I think you're going to end up wanting to go back or wishing you had, but I'm not going to tell you that you can't do it.
Like the one advisory I have is to like not play CS3 first.
Yes,
because
don't listen to NIS America. Don't play Cold Steel 3
first. If you play Cold Steel 3 first, like you're not there's like absurd amounts of context and plot that they're gonna talk about, and you're gonna have no idea what's happening.
It would be like starting Game of Thrones on like book 4.
No, I mean, even starting Cold Steel 1, like when I first did, it starts you in media res and you don't know what the hell is going on. And
it's funny because the scene that it starts you in media res on is a scene that is happening parallel to a scene in Trails to Asher.
oh, okay. that kind of
you will see the other side of that.
Yeah.
The other side.
No, like I'm pretty hyped about it, and because even already there's some emotional payoff from the just watching the opening from lingering onto the menu screen so far. When I saw the two characters, I was like, oh shit.
Nate's approach to Trails is like the most refreshing thing to me in like a long time. Because whenever I see, because like for like years, for like almost a decade by now, whenever I would see someone go into Trails, there was always like there would be so many like preconceived notions in place from people who have like recommended the games to them, so like so like when they would start a game or like a new arc, they would have an idea of like how they should feel about it, whereas Nate is the first one I'm seeing in like a long time to be the most open-minded about it, which is very nice.
Yeah, it helps that I literally like all I knew about it was what you guys have said, and then from there I was like, okay, time to make my own opinions.
It's funny because Ryuji's almost trying to like pretend that he's spoiling me on games I haven't played yet. He'll be like, oh, something's happening to this character, and it's like, that's a character I haven't met yet, Ryuji, but go off, I guess. I'll totally remember that in a year and a half when Reverie comes out.
So the only thing that I actually have been spoiled on, which I was kind of disappointed on, was the return of one of the major characters of 2 of SC.
I don't
in Kuro 2.
Kuro 2. So those okay. We're not gonna talk about fucking Kuro.
We're not gonna talk about it.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna talk about it.
We're trying to keep this spoiler free.
It's not as big a deal, Nate.
Okay, it's not as big a deal once I start going through the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Nate, with what little time we have left, do you want to kind of just give like a short summary on your time playing Trails in the Sky?
Yes. So it's what I have left. Playing Trails in the Sky has been one of the most weirdest things ever at first, because I started on PC and then I moved to the Evolution ports via a fan patch that put in those newer translations, official translations.
You mean the no? They didn't change the translation. I think they just changed the they gave you the voice acting and like the art style and that stuff.
No, they just gave us the translation from Xseed into it. So that's what the fan patch did. Right. So I got a slightly different experience that was at first kind of confusing, but I think overall it helped in my enjoyment of the series that much more. Because I'm much more of a console player rather than a PC player. So being able to play it on a console kind of helped me enjoy it.
He's talking about the Vita, by the way.
Yeah, Vita.
Just so we're clear, not the PS4.
Vita means life. And it, it helped me fall in love. And once I sat down, I was able to actually concentrate because I'm not, bouncing around on my computer. I fell in love with Estelle. I think right now she's my favorite Trails character right now. And I had a blast. At first it was a game I would lay down in bed, play for a couple hours and thing, to a game where I couldn't stop playing anymore. I had to play it. and it's the most fun I've had in a game in a long time. And it's kind of refreshing. And me messaging you guys every time I got to the clear screen of a game or to a certain boss or to a funny line that I thought was funny was because I was genuinely excited. I was definitely feeling the passion for this, and I can see why you guys love this game so much because I fell in love with it too.
I'm glad. Yeah, just go Trails in the Sky on Steam goes on sale all the freaking time, often for less than $10 a game. You get a lot of bang for your buck there, and the the original trilogy is something special. I do think that it is sometimes met by what follows, but there's nothing quite like it in terms of like your first time going through it.
Yeah.
So it is something that, again, I recommend to everyone, not as something that not as homework you have to do before you get to go play the 3D games, but as extremely good games in their own right that deserve to be played and remembered, not just because you have to get through them to get to other games.
Yeah, don't treat them like an obligation,
Yeah, don't do like an obligation. Do them as something you want to do, and you'll have a blast.
And on that note, I want to thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. We post theoretically every Tuesday on your podcast app of choice and on the Noisy Pixel YouTube channel. What do you guys think of Trails in the Sky? How many of you have finished it? How many of you have started it, not finished it? What do you think of Ubisoft sunsetting all of these games? And have you bought any of them in a more recent format because of this decision? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future episode, you can leave a comment under this video or talk to us on Twitter. You can find me, Colin, at the Arcane Ranger, Nate at Less Than Nathan, and Bailey at Orpheus Joshua, or the site itself at Noisy Pixel News. The Stray Pixels podcast is brought to you by NoisyPixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, podcasts, and more. Please like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our future content, and join our community Discord server to come talk nerdy with us. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.